Welcome back to the channel, my friends. We're making a video during the daytime. So, I watched a video, or a short rather, on Facebook about Jon Snow. And I came to realize that I hate Janos Slynt more than I once thought. So, I wrote a script in segments about Janos Slynt. And we're going to end with a little bit about Jon Snow. Because, well, that's the whole reason I wrote the script after all. So, we're just going to start at an arbitrary Joffrey gave the order, Ilyn Payne actually swung the sword, but Janos Slynt was just as guilty and hands were just as bloody as those other two guys because he actually smiled as he betrayed the Warden of the North and the Hand of the King for a bag of Lannister gold, akin to Judas betraying Jesus for a few pieces of silver. So Janos Slynt was commander of the City Watch. And one, if not the biggest reason for why Ned Stark died. He was killed. My man was beheaded. Spoiler alert for the TV show, guys. He was beheaded. Sorry if you hear a bunch of nonsense. I'm trying to put a cough drop in. So, that's Janos Slynt. And if you noticed, if you watch the show, he was sent to the wall. But before he was cowering and pissing himself at the wall, again, he was the commander of the city's watch at King's Landing, the Gold Cloaks. He wasn't a great warrior. He wasn't a tactical genius. He was a climber. He was a man who was low-born, came up the ranks by being ruthless, corrupt, and very, very, very willing to do other people's dirty work. So in the books, we learned he bought and bullied his way to the top, basically. Taking bribes and doing whatever the crown or whoever held power at the time, or whoever had the most gold, Lannisters looking at you, needed done in the streets of King's Landing. Whatever they wanted, he was the guy. And when the Lannisters needed someone to quietly betray Ned Stark, Janos Slynt was basically like, yeah, fuck, I'll do it. And yeah, that just brings us to Robert Baratheon laying in bed dying, that damn pig. It was Ned who ultimately discovered Joffrey wasn't Robert's son, but a product of Cersei and Jaime's nonsense. Let's go with nonsense for YouTube safety purposes. Ned believed that in the grand scheme the law was pretty clear of what to do in the matter, and it was to pass the crown to Stannis instead of some inbred blonde-haired people. So Ned tried to be honorable, which always is the bad thing to do in TV shows and books and stuff like this. So he confronts Cersei, he writes to Stannis, and he tries to make the best plan to secure King's Landing using the City Watch, which will turn out to bite him in the ass, but he's trying to use the City Watch to control King's Landing, because whoever controls King's Landing kind of controls the entirety of Westeros. And that's where Janos Slynt comes in. Ned thinks he can buy the loyalty of the Gold Cloaks by paying them formally, but he didn't really know that they were being paid informally to be against Ned. So Ned kind of does this without realizing that someone else has already reached out to Janos Slynt. Because let's just say Ned's very loyal, he's very honorable, but he isn't exactly the Game of Thrones player that some other people are. So while Ned is doing all of this, Littlefinger is playing, again, the Game of Thrones. He's playing a completely different game than Ned. Littlefinger's master of coin and a master manipulator. He understands who Janos Slynt is down to a cellular level. He is not driven by honor or law. He's driven by money, status, and just wanting to survive. Which, if you noticed, that's a whole bunch of people in Game of Thrones. They are going to do whatever and whatever they can to survive to the next day. Janos Slynt's one of them. So off-screen, in the TV show, it's kind of implied, I guess same in the books, it's implied that Littlefinger and the Lannisters bought Janos Slynt's loyalty with gold and promises of power, and we actually kind of like see the payoff of that after, where Janos Slynt's actually elevated to Lord of Harrenhal, which is a massive jump for a lowborn person like him. I believe he was like a butcher's son. I'm trying to go back in my head to the TV show where Tywin is like, what? Yeah, first off, I would never want to be Lord of Harrenhal. It's one of those things where you take a step back and go, everybody else who had it ended up how? Yeah, I'll pass. Thanks, though. I'll keep being commander of the City Watch. But he jumped on it, which is crazy. And that only really makes sense if Janos Slint was already bought and paid for. So, oh God, I'm trying to look through my script here and come up with the best way to say this. Basically, by the time Ned bought the gold cloaks, he thought it was like a 500 IQ move, when in reality, at that point, he had already lost. He was up for bid, and the Lannisters outbid Ned Stark, but Ned Stark didn't know that there was a bid going on. So, we're going to go to the day where Ned finds out Robert died, has basically Robert's will, do this, and this, and he goes to confront everybody. So Ned has Robert's final letter, naming him Protector of the Realm until a rightful heir can claim the throne. And that rightful heir being Stannis, but, Stannis is in Dragonstone, which is kind of a hike from King's Landing. Not much, but enough where a few days could toss things into craziness. And he's convinced that he has done everything morally, honorably correct, legally correct. He has the letter, he has Littlefinger's promise, he has the gold cloaks. He thinks he is, again, 500 IQ move, when in reality, at this point, he already lost. So in the throne room, Cersei says, F what Robert wants. Haha. There we go. Into the trash can. Kobe. You know what I'm saying? And Joffrey claims the throne for himself. Ned gives the signal. Like a baseball signal. And it seems as if, because this was a plot twist for me. Okay, let's take a time out here and take you back to when I watched this episode. I was in the Navy. I was deployed at the time. One of my friend's wives sent a thumb drive to him with a bunch of movies, bunch of TV shows. And basically, if you were in the military, you know how this works. We all have laptops. You basically just plug in this USB to everybody's thing. We download it and give it back. So I was watching this in my rack. Just like, dang, Ned's gonna do it. Ned's gonna do it. And then just like that, the Gold Cloaks move. Weapons drawn, they surround the Lannisters, and then they start poking the Northern forces, and Ned's just like, what? Like, he can't believe it. It all went wrong. Ned made the fatal assumption that the Southern men were like the Northern men, where they had some sort of honor. And it's not that money didn't matter, but money wasn't the end-all, be-all for them. And he wasn't like that. He obeys power, and at the time, the Lannisters were the power. So, as they did all this, like I said, they started stabbing all the Northern men. They turned on Ned Stark. Yeah, the betrayal was complete at that point. And Ned never had a chance. I think in the TV show, he was stabbed by a spear in the knee.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
I want to say in the books, it's been a minute since I read that book. I want to say like his horse fell on him or something like that. He wasn't going to outfight anybody. But yeah, that was it. Even if Ned was completely fine, he didn't have a chance. Even if he was at 100% in his prime, he would have had no chance. And he was on the ground, disarmed, surrounded, and entirely at the mercy of the people he just went there to expose. Everybody he just went there to confront and expose, that's who he's at the mercy of. So, yeah. And then Janos Slynt is standing, snickering, safely on the winning side. This seems like I don't want to... You guys know that I hate the phrase. I hate to call out the phrase here, but this is like a Walder Frey move, where you're going to wait, you're going to wait, you're going to wait, you're going to wait, and then you're going to be like, aha, I found a way for this person to win. That's what side I'm going to be on. I'm going to be the key for that. Or showing up as late as humanly possible to still get some credit. Yeah, I hate the phrase. I have a video on that. That might be at the end. That might be the linked video, but yeah, there's that. So you could argue, like I said at the beginning, that Joffrey ultimately killed Ned Stark by ordering his execution. You could argue Cersei killed Ned Stark by simply creating the situation that caused the plotting and everything that went against Ned Stark. You could argue that Littlefinger, by orchestrating all of the betrayal behind the scenes, killed Ned Stark. All which would be true. But none of it works without Janos Slynt. Ned had the legal authority, the king's final letter. I believe it even had like his seal on there. And he had, let's just call it a bunch of political leverage. At this point, it would have been Renly dipped out on him. I think Renly, maybe in a what if video, Renly could have possibly rectified this entire situation by getting as many people there as he could and doing that. But then he would have wanted to be king, and that would have been another shit show. And Ned probably would have just died to somebody else's sword. But that's that. He didn't have control of the armed men in the city, which ultimately came to screw him. He tried to secure that by trusting Janos Slynt, and that trust and loyalty was kind of his undoing. Slynt's betrayal, he neutralized all of Ned's soldiers in one go. There wasn't picking them off all around the city over days and days. It was, we're going to massacre them all in one go. Janos Slynt was able to hand Ned Stark over to the winning side alive, which turns out you're always going to be better leverage alive rather than dead, and he gives the Lannisters complete military control over King's Landing. So in that sense, yeah, he didn't necessarily betray him, but he did everything to help the enemy. Without any of that, Ned escapes or secures the throne, or at least dies fighting for what's right instead of being beheaded. So, I swear my script's almost over. We can get to the whole point of this. Janos Slynt didn't walk away empty-handed. In the books, he was granted Harrenhal, one of the largest and most infamous castles in the entirety of Westeros. It's a huge reward, but if we've learned anything from anyone who's ever had Harrenhal, it's a shit show. I believe in House of the Dragon, they always said, we can never get a fire started because it's always fucking wet. It takes a ton of gold to just keep it running, let alone fix what's been fucked up over the years. And he didn't have that. I hate to break it to Janos Slint, but he wasn't like that. So, yeah. Yep, I did write it down. I believe he was the Butcher's son. So, we're going to go to the Wall. Because obviously they sent him to the Wall. We know that. You guys watch this show. Wow, we're already 13 minutes into this, of course. So, in Westeros, you regularly get the option, hey, we're either going to behead you or you can go to the Wall. And like I said earlier in the video, this guy will do anything to survive, so yes, the Wall is nice this time of year. I will go there. And that's kind of that. But at Castle Black, he didn't change any of his behavior. He still was the same arrogant, cowardly, willing to do and say anything to stir up trouble for who he basically was told to. And that's how he ultimately met his end. Jon Snow, who's now Lord Commander, orders Slynt to take command of a castle, fix it up as best he can, because he's trying to separate his enemies as best he can. And Slynt said, nah, I'm good. And he did it multiple times. And this is where his past, which, when you join the Night's Watch, your past goes away. Unless you did dirty the father figure of the Lord Commander, which in this case, Janos Slynt literally helped take the life of Ned Stark. Jon Snow's not going to forget that. So, in the back of my mind, I think Jon Snow was honestly saying, please give me a reason. And Janos Slynt ultimately gave Jon Snow the reason to behead him. He refused, did him dirty, so Jon just says, fetch me my sword. And he orders his execution, which is kind of a bit of symmetry. Because Jon does what Ned would have done. He carries out the sentence himself on the guy who helped behead his father. So Janos Slint dies at the wall, terrified, pleading, without honor. Honestly, from everything I know from Game of Thrones, he probably pissed and shit himself, which, even better. And he died at the hand of the son of the man he helped kill in King's Landing. So it's just a perfect circle. Everything makes sense. So to finish this up, he sold his loyalty to the Littlefinger and the Lannisters. He pretended to stand with Ned. He turned the gold cloaks into the killers of the Northmen in the south. He handed Ned alive to his enemies. He got sent to the wall and then got killed by Ned's son, which is just poetic. It's diabolical, if you will. But yeah, that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, this came from a Facebook random AI generated short or reel or whatever they're called on Facebook. And I'm just like, I like that. I like where your head's at. Do I remember which channel it was? No, because there's like 5 million AI generated channels that use the same janky English accent AI bot. So yeah, that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. I like doing videos where I don't have to... This is straightforward. This is not me making anything up. This is just factually what happened in the story with a little bit of my opinion on it. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Peace.